Welcome back, DP Nation, to yet another episode, and we are delighted to have you in the studio with us. So why don't you get a notebook, a pen, a cup of coffee, or maybe a glass of iced tea. Come along in the journey with us in this episode.
With all of my heart, Lord, I will love you. With all of my soul, I'll give you praise. With all of my strength, I lift my hands, my voice. I worship you all my days. I worship you all.
Welcome back, DP Nation. And we are just thrilled to be in the studio again to have you tuning in. We value your time. We appreciate your time. And thank you so much for tuning into these episodes. And we are very, very close to the school year again. People are headed back to college. Brother Pound is celebrating. He's shipping all of his children off to
Declan's last year next
Oh.
year. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I
Not all
remember
of
that.
them.
I remember the first day I went to school and it was cool. And then the second day I realized I had to go to school and it was no longer cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
It's been
so
too
I
many years for me for that. so.
I have to go to this. I don't get to choose.
No.
Yeah, and then it was like, how can I play sick? Because
Yep.
if you're sick, you can't go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're back in that season. People going to college, high school, middle school, elementary school. All of the schools are back in full force. And this is actually kind of an interesting trend, is there is a massive movement to homeschooling in the United States.
Huge.
Yes, it's huge.
Huge.
It's huge.
Huge move.
It's a huge move. And
Anyways.
our former president says it's huge, and our current vice president talks about all the school buses that she loves. So
They're yellow. They're yellow school buses.
we're in the greatest place that we have ever been.
Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. And getting close to election season, I'm sure that will be exciting.
Yes.
So yeah, just exciting things going on.
It's like an adventure every single day.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's like, and the good thing is some of our politicians are old enough now, they don't even remember what happened the day before. So
No,
it's
it's
like,
just yellow buses and ice cream. Sorry. We can cut that if we have to.
no, I like it. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I like yellow buses and ice cream too. So.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting moving into fall. I love fall. I do love fall. I love when you wake up and you feel the sharp bite of the air, the crisp, you feel the weather change.
The
especially
smell
here
of
in
green
Colorado.
chilies.
Yes, it is green chili roasting season in Pueblo. Listen, if you have not had a bowl of green chili in your life from Pueblo, Colorado,
Hey,
you are
yeah.
missing it.
Yes.
But you can resolve that. We have Passing the Torch conference coming up.
Yep.
It is the first Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of October. And you can make your way, have an amazing conference. The speaker lineup this year is outstanding. We have Bishop Nathaniel Wilson, Bishop Paul Elder. We have Pastor Jordan Copeland, Bishop Jonathan Alviar, and Pastor John Shoemake. That is not the order they're speaking in. That's just the names of who's speaking.
Yep.
Wednesday evening, we have our mortgage burning service. Our church is officially paid off here in Pueblo, Colorado, and we are burning the mortgage Wednesday night of Passing the Torch, and we are going to celebrate God helping us pay that off. It has been an amazing time watching God move us a huge chunk of the way, and really since February, I believe, is when we had Pastor Varnell come and do our Supernatural Sunday service with us, and that was outstanding watching God move in that.
Yes. It's been awesome.
A lot of exciting things going on. Pastor Jeffrey Elder and Greeley, they're getting settled into their new building and rocking and rolling, and that's cool. I think they're working towards purchasing that building now and not just renting, and that's awesome. And then here in Pueblo, we are reaching the point of probably going to need to expand in the not-too-distant future,
Yes.
and that's always exciting. And we pray that things are exciting. We are where you are. We pray that you're teaching Bible studies, that people are being baptized and filled with the Holy Ghost. We had a young man baptized Sunday morning, and
Yes.
he's sitting in the water, received the Holy Ghost.
So
And
awesome.
it's always awesome to watch that happen. So exciting things going on, and we pray that it is the same for you. As one of the OG podcasters always says, Pastor Nathaniel Urshan, he makes a statement, it is a great day to be apostolic.
Yes.
And I'm really sad that I didn't come up with that saying first. In fact, at Peak, they had a shirt that said that. I almost bought one.
Oh, that's cool.
But tonight, I'm representing the move back to school, so I got my Wilson University.
We need to do some more double portion merch. Hey, if you guys want more merch, reach out through the DMs or YouTube or whatever podcasting platform you guys use, and let us know if you guys would like more merch, and we can maybe start working towards that.
Yes, and maybe we can, I know it's a little bit more in depth, but maybe we'll be able to set up a drop to ship.
Yes, it is a possibility.
Some
We just have
form.
not got it done
Yes,
yet.
it is possible. It just takes a little bit more sourcing, and but that way you can hop on and you can order a new hoodie every week. You can just get a
Hallelujah.
new hoodie every week or whatever merch is on there.
Huge. So
The jury's still out on the Biblos mug. I know he says that
yeah, I haven't.
coffee's better when you drink out of it.
Yeah,
I've been testing it since peak. Coffee's pretty good.
yep. It's just because we don't have a double portion one, bro. So we
Well, so that's the thing. You know, it's better in a Biblos mug, but if you had a double portion mug, it would be double as good. It just follows. It's double portion.
Yep.
So
That's
we
it.
know he can't compete with that, but that's okay.
It's all right. We still love him.
We still love him.
Great podcast.
It is a great podcast. So, in this episode, we are going to touch on something that I think is in the forefront, or maybe it is at least somewhere floating in the minds of every apostolic that's doing their best to engage our generations. You have Gen Z, they call them the Zoomers,
Zoomers.
and then you have the Millennials and Gen Alpha. And
Yeah.
Gen Alpha is now coming on fast and furious, and they are taking the world by storm.
Yeah.
And those three generations, the Millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, are rooted and grounded in technology. This is not really what you would consider a migrant generation in technology, in that you have people that grew up without technology and migrated into the world of technology. You do see that to some extent once you get towards the beginning of the millennials. But by the time you reach the end of the millennial generation, which is 96, I believe it ends December 31st of 96, and then definitely Gen Alpha and our Gen Z, the Zoomers. I think it's why do they call them? Anyway,
Yeah.
you have the Zoomers and the Alphas.
I'd have to research it.
So once you get into those generations, they grew up with technology, and especially if they're from a lot of the Western nations, and even when you get into a lot of places in Asia and other places in the world, it's very hard to go somewhere and there not be technology around you now.
Yeah. Yep.
When some of the places that God has blessed me to travel, you can be in places of severe poverty, and it still seems like the majority of people have a phone, they have internet access, and they have a way to charge that phone, and they may not even have shoes on their feet and a roof over their head. And so one of those things that is growing, ever growing with technology, is social media.
Yes.
And so that's what we're going to talk about. And we're just going to throw some numbers at you now. Don't get worried and don't get excited, depending on which side of the aisle you're on here. We're not
Yes.
gonna be necessarily for or against.
Yes.
We're just throwing out some information. Really, what we're trying to get you to do, DP Nation, is to stop and think. And so every few months at DP, the DP headquarters, this conversation comes up again because it is important. It is something that's evolving, and it's growing and it's progressing constantly. And so we need to constantly be just keeping a pulse
Yeah.
keeping the pulse of what's going on with this. So
Yes.
this last week, I was doing some research about something else, and I was listening to a interesting book by a man who is a creationist, a brilliant scientist. His name is John Lennox. And as he began to talk, he began to throw out some numbers about technology and social media, and it really piqued my interest. So I began to dig around. So I'm going to throw some numbers at you that truly I don't know if we really comprehend the immense size of these numbers. I know I'm still working on them. But so I'll give you one. I hopped into some different places to do research and begin to dig around to see if I could find just the sheer amount of data that's being produced because of social media. And these are just a few places I came across. So Facebook, pretty much everyone has a Facebook now, except for yours truly. I don't think I've ever had a Facebook.
Yeah.
I did use it for a while when I was starting my company. When I was starting up a company and doing a lot of side work, I did use Facebook. I don't really understand how to use it, so thank God for my wife. And she did that side, and then I went out and did the work side. But Facebook generates over 4 petabytes.
Good grief.
I did not know that was a thing until I read this. So a petabyte is 1,000 terabytes.
Yes.
So 4 petabytes is 4,000 terabytes of data. Facebook generates this every single day.
That is insane.
And that includes everything that's being uploaded or communication on Facebook. So that can be posts, videos, images,
It's primarily video, high def video.
conversations, direct messages, everything that's going on in Facebook. This isn't looking at one aspect of Facebook. This is looking at all of the data generated from Facebook. It amounts to 4,000 terabytes, or now that I know what to call it, 4 petabytes of data a day,
That is crazy.
which is mind-boggling because you can go back in the day. Like I remember when the iPod Touch was like the coolest thing that you could have, unless you had an iPhone, because like Samsung wasn't a thing yet. I mean, they may have been a thing, but they weren't really a thing. So it was, you either had a Droid or you had an iPhone.
Yeah. What did you ever have the was it the Zune? So everybody that couldn't afford the iPhone.
So Zoom was like it was like right before my teenage years, so I couldn't have one. But oh yeah, I knew what it was.
They're actually making a new one. I saw
Really?
this is a side note, yes, but I saw somebody
I'm gonna have to get
advertising
one.
this yesterday. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get
cool.
one.
Yeah, you can buy
so
them.
I think the first iPod Touch I had, because I didn't have an iPhone. I don't think I got an iPhone until I was 16 or 17. But anyway, I never got a Droid because they've just never worked right. I'm sorry, all of you
We're still praying for you.
people out there, Samsungs and Brother Poundy's on the. Oh, God help him. Anyway, I'm praying fast for him. Maybe one day y'all be apostolic.
Gotta get you to pray somehow. So I'm just kidding.
So I think the first iPod Touch I had, it maybe had 16 gigs of memory on it. Maybe. I remember when you could get a 120 gig phone, and it was
I
like,
was like, wow.
I think my phone, I don't even know. I think my phone has like 400 or 500 gigs of space. And then obviously
Yeah.
you have cloud storage. Now, one place that, I don't know if they still do it, but where Samsung does seem to be way ahead is the ability to upgrade storage capacity.
It's kind of going away though.
So they're
They've
going
gone the
away.
way of everybody else where it's fixed. So you could back in the day you could add, and some of them still do. You can add the SD card, but the way with apps and the way they're going with them anymore, it's almost not even worth it actually.
Yeah.
So
Well, I guess Apple got it right again. Samsung's just going to copy us. One fascinating thing about the new iPhones is they do not have a physical SIM card. It's called an eSIM.
Yeah, everybody is
So
doing the
that's
same thing.
pretty interesting. But yeah, so now when you're talking about, terabytes and 4,000 terabytes in a day, that's
Well, that's-
mind-boggling.
So
amount
you
of
can
data.
get now a Samsung phone, and maybe this is with iPhone. I haven't looked. That's 1 terabyte.
I think you can get an iPhone that's a terabyte.
Yeah, which is just crazy to me. Like, I remember having my first 512 kilobyte phone.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah,
Took
you're
horrible
like-
pictures, but
I know. It's like my wife and I found an old one of her old iPhones. And we were
Uh-huh.
looking through, and I'm like, these pictures are horrible.
horrible.
And when it came out, we're like, bro, this camera's amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, I know. That's funny.
So we live in a digital age. We live in an age of technology.
Yeah.
Another massive name in social media world is YouTube. So
Yeah.
users, this is just uploads to YouTube. This is people that have an account that are uploading to YouTube. Users on YouTube will upload more than 500 hours of video per minute, amounting to over 720,000 hours of video daily. That's not video that's being watched. That's just video that's being uploaded.
That's
The amount of video that's being streamed off of YouTube daily is probably an insane. I was trying to dig around and find that number. And it was
Yeah.
kind of hard to find that
Well,
number.
that's the hard thing. I think you saw this. I saw this in Digging. There's a lot of people that put stats out. The stats vary somewhat. I don't know that there's one solid platform that I can find that gives like everything I'm looking for. I guess data analytics on like different cultures and countries that use it at different rates, ethnicities, because they do break it down, but it's not all in one place. So if you guys do know out there, DP Nation, a good website for this kind of stuff, this is useful information. But even just the small amount we find, it's just if anything, we're just bringing it out. It's a moment to pause and say, what is this? Why is this? This is a thing that's growing extremely fast.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I brought up the generations is that what we're moving into is we're moving into a world of technology natives. So people that have literally had technology in their hands from the time that they're born. My son is 8 months old, and he already has technology all around him.
Yep.
Now, I'm not putting an iPad in front of him for
No.
13 hours a day because that's severely damaging to his health. So,
Yeah.
but it's still around him. He sees me sending texts. He sees me working on the computer. He hears the music that
The norm.
streams from all manner of different platforms. He hears the preaching that streams from these platforms. He's
Yeah.
already immersed and saturated. I mean, like even the little booger picker thing that for the baby, it's like it's the old school one with
Yeah.
the ball that you. Bro, my wife has never. I don't even think he's ever had that in his nose. She has like this cool like vacuum, like it's all digital.
Those are gross.
It is gross. I'll tell you something really gross. The other day I walked in and he's sitting on the changing station. I set him there. So I'm like hanging my clothes real quick. I turn around and he has the booger picker thing in his mouth and he's just like, nom, nom, nom.
This is good.
I was like, dude,
No.
get that out of your, that's disgusting. Oh, I was laughing, man. He thought it was great. That's the greatest thing ever. So we have to be, this is why we have to keep as apostolics, as ministers, as propagators of the gospel of Jesus Christ. We've got to keep our pulse
Yeah.
on this because to reach these generations, this is the world they live in.
Yes.
And when you come to them and you say, like, if it came up in conversation, I was like, oh, I don't have a Facebook. They might not think I'm that weird because I don't have a Facebook. But one place where they will think you're weird, like, oh, I don't have a Snapchat or I don't have a
Yeah.
TikTok. They'd be like, what? You don't have you don't have TikTok?
So-
You're not on TikTok? That's crazy.
I was on a job today working on some computers, and there's the front receptionist. She was a younger, maybe in her 20s. I don't know. She was talking to another person about like Threads, which is an Instagram now, but I didn't know about Threads, so 'cause I haven't been on there in a while. And it does look just like the old Twitter. And so and she was like, yeah, Snapchat's like so yesterday, and they're just going on. We live in a generation that is just evolving, and they're on the cutting edge of this.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there going, I felt really old for a second. I've seen
Yeah.
Instagram, but I was just like, wow.
So it's bringing up Instagram. So some of the data I found, there's over 95 million photos and videos that will be shared daily on Instagram. And then there will be over 500 million tweets that are posted on X. I don't know how else you say that. 'Cause it's like he
that's
messed
it.
it all. Elon Musk, I know you listen to this, bro. You messed it all up. You change the name to your favorite letter, and I get it, but now you can't, like Twitter and tweet works, but X and then like I don't know,
Yeah.
there's 500
Well,
million.
now
X's.
too, it's like subscription based. If you want all the functionality, I guess it's a subscription. I haven't been on there in so long, so
I have a sneaky suspicion he's about to roll out some crypto stuff connected to X
maybe that was it.
as a form of payment,
That wouldn't surprise me.
because he still holds almost all his Doge, which
That's
is crazy.
That is crazy.
Because it dumped. But he still holds a lot of those, like the junk coins.
that is crazy.
That's
And
another
This
side
was
note.
this was the other one. 4 trillion hours on social media is going to be this year. This is a global average. This is a global average, not a month. But 4 trillion hours. I had to ask ChatGPT how many zeros were on that.
It's 12.
Yes, and that's just mind-boggling. Even if this is just an average,
Yep.
that's insane.
Yep. So that is the sum total of all of the hours that would be spent on just social media. That doesn't include like news applications. That doesn't include cable television. That doesn't include things like Netflix, Hulu, all the other ones that I can't even think of. There's a gazillion of them now. I know Amazon has one connected to Amazon Prime. So that doesn't include going to movie theaters. That is literally just social media. That does include YouTube. YouTube shows up a
social
lot
media.
when you're looking through social media platforms. But that is insane. So we were trying to figure out like how do you understand 4 trillion hours? So if you believe in an Earth that is 6,000 to 10,000 years old, and you have consecutive lifetimes, so 75 years.
Yeah.
And then the next one 75 years.
Yeah.
And then the next one 75 years. So consecutive lifetimes. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all can see that.
No, I
Then-
just have it up there.
That is, when you get down here to the bottom right here where it says ratio, that is 76,000 times the approximate span of a 6 to 10,000 year old Earth.
I don't know how to balance out. Yeah, it's kind of whited out on the picture, but just use ChatGPT or you probably put it into Google because now AI is connected to everything. But
That is crazy.
we just messed around and threw a calculation. I wouldn't even know where to start. And obviously, this is not taking a lot of things into calculation. Like it gives an average lifespan, and we know biblically speaking, the lifespan was significantly different in the beginning of the Bible. However, just as kind of something that draw an average from or see something as a number in our human minds, this is, even if it was like a quarter of this, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
So 4 trillion hours is basically 76,000 6,000 year periods.
Yeah.
Roughly, that's what ChatGPT is getting at. And I understand that there's some of you out there that are pounding your steering wheel right now saying there's an old Earth theory in the Bible. That's okay.
Yeah. And then other people are mad because we use ChatGPT. So.
And then there's some people are saying the Earth is 10,000 years old. And hey,
Yeah.
listen, when we get to heaven,
Yep.
He'll tell us,
Yes.
and then we'll know.
Yep.
And if you believe in an old Earth theory, I love you. And if you believe in a young Earth theory, I love you. And we're glad you're tuning into the DP.
Amen.
We love all of our audience. So, with that being said, regardless of where you fall into all of this, of no social media, all social media, some social media, no technology, all technology, some technology, we are very quickly approaching a time where every single one of us, in fact, we have already passed this time.
Yeah.
We are way past this time. Every single one of us have got to know how to shut it off for a season.
Yes.
To just flip the switch and say, okay, it's off. Whether that be a season every morning or every evening or every day, or whether that be a time span of, I know some people say that you can only fast from food, and I understand that when you get into the word fast, I understand all that, but there are people that will go on what they call a social media fast, where just like you push the plate away, they shut it all off.
Well, here's the deal with that, and I 100% get the fast and the food aspect, but You are what you eat spiritually too, and your brain is being fed all day by what you put in it. And your emotions are affected by it. Who you are is affected by it. And so if you spend, let's just draw an average. Say you're doing 3 hours a day on social media and you don't even realize it. What are you spiritually getting from that? Is it spiritual McDonald's? You're eating chicken nuggets all day. So in the long run of things, how is that affecting your spiritual development? And we're not here to cross swords, but it's just a thought, something to ping off. If you're only spending 10 minutes a day or half an hour, praying, and 10 minutes, hopefully more than that, reading the Word of God. And then are we listening to anything that's uplifting, that spiritually helps us grow and develop? Or are we right away just going straight to social media? And so, we're not here to cross swords with anybody. These are just these are observations that we have seen. They're concerns. I have kids too that they've known technology since, I've always had a phone since they've been born. Dad's had technology. I work in the field, and so I have to learn to be able to set boundaries in my own life with technology, because I have to be able to tell them this is a tool that we use for certain reasons and things, but it never replaces what we do and who we are in God, and it's becoming increasingly more challenging every day when you have technology growing at the rate it's growing. And this is something I do think about all the time. My children do have some cell phones. I know that's going to be controversial with some people, but they're locked down, they're time restricted, and they're only used when I allow them to be used. And you say, well, why would you do that? Because I don't want my kids to be unequipped when they step into the world. But on the same hand, I don't want them to be sitting on a phone for, even an hour or 2 a day doing nothing. I want them to understand how to use a tool. It'd be like if I was showing them how to work on a car or anything else in life. There's time you set aside to work on it. These are the tools. This is how we use it, and this is how we're going to go forward with it. And here's the benefits of it, and here's the downsides of this. We can't leave them blinded and stepping out into a world where they've never experienced it. That's just my opinion. And it's becoming harder and harder, because it seems like as you begin to establish those lines and precepts and things, somewhere, some app, some phone, something begins to blur the lines, or the control you used to have, you no longer have. And so there's this constant evolving in people like, well, you just turn it off. But we're getting increasingly further away from the ability to disconnect or turn it off. The phone is becoming an essential part of just everyday living. And so, and you say, no, you don't need it anymore, but your banking, eventually it will be IDs, everything you do. Everything I do at work, I could not literally do it without my cell phone because of multi-factor authentication, which is a big word. You can go Google that one. But every app I have at work requires it, and I have to have a phone to be able to do that, and it requires biometrics. And so I cannot literally disconnect from it. I'd be unoperational, without a job, and broke pretty quick. And so it's something we have to think about. But even in the middle of that, it does not take precedent, and it does not take the time. It should not be the first thing in our mind, the thing that sits on the throne of our mind. So there has to be a constant conscious awareness that is going on, that God, I want you to know that you are still in the center. You are on the throne of my thoughts and my mind. And I don't want to be so desensitized and walking through life blindly that I miss this.
Yeah. So we're at that time where we all have to understand, okay, technology is a tool. We live in a world where we're going to have it. And the further we get into this, once we get to through Gen Alpha and to the next generation and then the next generation after that, and by then Brother Pound and I will be old and using walkers and barely making it.
It'll be
barely
holograms
making
at
it
that
to
point.
the studio.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to, podcasts will be old news by then. Nobody will be
Nobody
podcasting
owns
by
a
then.
podcast, yeah. I don't know, though. They're bringing back the Zune, so maybe it'll just be a new version. I thought when I saw the Zune, I was like, okay, I'm old. I have literally seen history repeat itself now.
Yeah, so once we get, technology is not going away. And so we have got to have the spiritual wherewithal to know how to flip the switch. and
Yeah.
understand that in this where I am right now, this part of my life, it is quarantined. There you
Yeah.
go. There's a word that everybody understands. This
No,
part of my
that's good.
life is quarantined off, and that is not intruding into this part of my life.
Can I interject something there? Quarantine, when we talk about that almost surreal time in life where we all went through a few years ago, where quarantine was a thing, it felt odd. It was weird. Everything was flipped upside down. And so me and my wife practiced this. We started a few months ago, or maybe it's been a while now, where we turned it off for a week. And there was a moment where it just felt kind of weird. Like you're so used to just having it there available. So when you do that, expect to have, there's going to be an emotional response because social media does affect the human emotion on a high level. So when you turn it off for a week, it's almost like when you go on a fast, first 2 days, second day is kind of rough, third day can be rough or not, depending on how often you fast. There's an effect when you burn off those carbs. But it's the same way with social media. And you turn it off, you'll go, the first day might be good. If you stay busy, that's the key. Just stay busy. Don't try to have a plan, have a goal. Say, God, I'm gonna draw closer to you. I'm gonna get into the Bible. I'm gonna do something. It's a safer way to do it, because if not, if you're idle, it's gonna be a challenge. Same way with fasting. If you just go into fasting and have nothing going on, and you're sitting around and you're smelling food, it's hard. So have a goal, have a plan, because when you turn it off, there's going to be an emotional response from your flesh.
Yep.
It's going to want to go back to it.
Yep. So understand and have that time. And the scripture that came to my mind is, speaking of Jesus, it's Matthew 14:23, and it says, "And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone." And so Jesus had spent, at this point, a day, a whole morning into an afternoon, and even into the evening. He is alone. The multitudes are sent away, and he is in a time of recuperating and refreshing and renewing his spiritual man.
Yeah.
And there's no way that we can communicate or minister effectively if we're not having those seasons. There's several men of God, great men of God, that I've heard, some of them in person and some of them through recordings or stories of them. They would talk about how that they would have times in their life. Some of them would have whole weeks, a week or two in a year, where they would do this. They would rent a cabin or a place isolated, and they would go there, and it would be a spiritual retreat for them. They wouldn't go on vacation and have everything so scheduled out that they only got 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
They would pull back into this place of isolation for a week or two, and it would be them, a preacher, his wife, and God. And many of them, all they would do is pray,
Yeah.
and spend time with their family, eat, and sleep.
Yes.
And like I said, some of them did it for a week, 2 weeks, 10 days. And you see Jesus doing this for a whole day, where he shuts it all off. He flips the switch. And we're not talking about just anybody. We're talking about God made flesh. We're talking about God in his express image as a man is showing you, hey, there comes a time when you have to flip the switch and say, it's all getting shut off. The multitudes are going away. And so, like I said, some people, they do that every morning. They do that every evening. Daniel did it 3 times a day, where he kneeled to pray. And 3 times a day, everything else was shut off. Everything else was put away, was isolated. It was quarantined off to where he said, nope, this is my time where it is me and God, and we speak of things that have eternal value.
Yes.
Because when you face reality, the vast majority of the things that stream to us through social media have very little value when it comes to eternity. Now, when it comes to, relationship and family, there is, to varying degrees, there are important things that go on social media. I mentioned at the beginning of this, I ran a business off of it.
Yeah.
Well, that business fed my family, which is of extreme value to me. So not everything on social media is useless and worthless.
Right.
But when you're looking at it in varying degrees of importance, there are things that are much weightier than the lump sum of the things that are put on social media. The lump sum of social media is where people are sleeping. They want to show off their house.
Yeah.
And it always cracks me up when, I'll see a reel or whatever. I'll see a post or whatever. And it's like this perfect coffee bar.
Yeah.
And, okay, now I know this is going to offend some people, but just please forgive me. It'll be like this perfect coffee bar. It'll be pristine. All of the utensils are in the right place. You open the drawer and all of the coffee's in the right place. And I'm like, man, that's so cool. And then they put the coffee pod in a Keurig, and I'm like,
nope.
You just lost me, man.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have an espresso machine. You don't even have an espresso. No espresso, no Nespresso, no.
I actually just had an espresso for the first time the other day. Not bad. I was actually kind of impressed for something coming out of a pod.
Yeah. Hey, so I will say this. If you have to use a Keurig, you need to buy Keurig pods that have a mesh back instead of the plastic.
Yeah. I put one in here.
The mesh back pods do drastically improve the taste of coffee because you don't get that.
So
weird,
the pre-filled mesh back pods, because you
Yep.
can buy the ones you fill yourself too.
Yeah, so you can buy them pre-filled now.
Oh, cool.
If you dig around, you can buy them pre-filled. So it's just like it almost looks like a coffee filter on the back.
Keurig
of
is
it.
just convenience. That's what it is.
It is.
Because if you have good espresso or, I don't know.
It's
anything's
trading
just way better.
quality
Yes.
for convenience.
That's it.
So anyway, that was a rabbit trail.
Need coffee.
But you see that and you're like, this is so fake. You don't have any kids around that. You don't have any people. There's no traffic around that coffee bar. You cleaned that thing like 7 times before you shot this video.
Yes.
And that's the majority of it. It's where they live, their house. They're showing off their new car. They're not showing off how they're stressing trying to pay the payment for the new car. They're showing off the food and like, man, I ate this burger, and they're not showing you what that burger just did to their
They're
cholesterol.
using AI to remove the actual reality of the situation. That's
Yeah,
the
it's
thing
like-
now. The AI can now remove the things in your video and pictures that you don't want automatically on
Yeah.
certain platforms. It gives you a fake reality.
So this is the it's not all, but this is the vast majority of what's going through our social medias. It's ads. It's people pulling on you to buy stuff that you don't need and that you think you want, and then you buy it and it just sits on a shelf and you never use it. And so it's the multitudes. It's this deluge of things that are pulling for your attention. And yet Jesus shows us that there are times, and you see this more than once in his ministry, where the multitudes are sent away, where it's shut off. It's all shut off.
Yeah.
And it's Jesus, and he's alone. And I think that's one of the reasons why people gravitate to social media, is because increasingly more and more we're afraid of alone.
Yeah.
That word brings fear to people. But it's in that one thing, and this has been the rabbit trail episode. Maybe we should just title it Rabbit Trails.
No, I think we should come back and do a tart pool, a part 2. Good Lord, I need coffee. On like, I don't know, the like benefits of it. Like, there are tools, like we all got to use it. And so how are you using it? How is this benefiting you in your situation, your church, your ministry? And how do you view this? And we could give some of the things that we utilize it for and the things we want to utilize it for. But, tonight we're kind of just raising awareness and a caution. But we still have it, and we have to use it. So what are some positive things? Maybe that's another part 2 we can work on.
Yeah. So in this rabbit trail, I don't know how many of you ever heard them, but the Father Gilbert series, focused on the family radio theater, dramatized not all of the books, but several of the books. I believe there's 9 Father Gilberts total. They dramatized 7 of them, or maybe there's 2 they never dramatized for whatever reason. But in one of those, Father Gilbert, who's an Anglican priest, he's also more of like a detective figure. He's kind of pushed at that he ran away to a monastery. If you know anything about Father Gilbert, if you don't, go listen to him, you'll understand it. But he makes the statement, and I can't get it exact, but the idea of the statement is that in the monastery you're isolated, and being alone or being in isolation is not always running away from things, but sometimes it is actually facing the more consequential and greater things. Yeah. And we live in a world where some people literally, physically, they cannot be alone because they are afraid to face those things. And when you shut off social media, when you shut off the masses, when you have that time of isolation where you flip the switch and say, yes, I'll get back to a point where I'm back in all of this and I'm using all of this, because that's what we're called to do. We're called to be in the world, we're called to be in the world and not of the world. Yes. That's how we reach people. We have to go out into the world. We cannot live a monastic lifestyle and truly be what God called us to be. And so, yeah, we are gonna turn all the things back on, and we are gonna go back into that world and reach out in every way that we can. But for a season, or maybe it's just an hour a day, maybe sometimes it's a month or 6 months. There's some social media platforms that I shut off when I was 18. I've never been back on them. Yeah. They were just for me and what God was doing with me. They didn't fit, so they got cut off. Yeah. But we cannot be afraid to be alone and to face the spirits that try to dominate in those areas and say, no, you're not going to dominate this area. And then also to have that spiritual retreat and refreshing with God. So we're not going to belabor the point in this episode, but we want to challenge you, DP Nation. Search yourself. Let God search your heart. Search your heart and ask yourself, are these things becoming so great to where if they were gone that I would suffer or that I would feel a withdrawal from them? Yeah. And are they taking the place of my prayer time? Are they taking the place of my walk with God? What am I using them for? Are they tools? Are they propagating His image, or am I just propagating my image? If I'm propagating my image, I'm getting very close to idolatry. Yeah. I'm getting very close to, you take that to the extent that eventually is what got Satan. I will ascend. I will become like the Most High. I will be like the stars of heaven. And it's that. He's building his image. He forgot that he wasn't supposed to be building his image. He was supposed to be reflecting God's image. Right. And so what are we doing with it? So, like I said, we're not telling you to shut it off and burn it and throw it away. It is a tool. It is necessary in many instances, not all instances, but it is necessary, and it has its place, and it can be used correctly. This is more of just coming alongside and asking the question, hey, is this becoming too much for you? And understanding that there's got to be a time. Yes. And realistically, there needs to be a time every day where the masses go away and it's just you and God. And it is that spiritual retreat, that time of communion, that time of strengthening and refreshing, and then you go out from there. You cannot minister if there is no relationship. Ministry always proceeds out of. It flows out of relationship. If you don't have a relationship with God, then you cannot minister effectively. You may be able to connive, you may be able to manipulate, you may be able to do good things. You may be able to push things in the right direction, but you cannot minister to people if you are not doing it from a place of relationship with God. So, we love you, DP Nation. Think about it. after you finish this episode, pray about it. If you're at a point where you got to shut it off for a while, don't be one bit intimidated to shut it off for a while. And if you're not at that place, then just tuck this episode in the back of your mind and realize, hey, I can't be afraid when it's time, when I know it's time, I can't be afraid to flip that switch and say, all right, for X amount of time, the multitudes go away. And until I'm ready to go back into minister, I'm going to let God pour into me so I can turn around and pour into those around us. We love you, DP Nation. Let's get out there. Let's thrust our hands into the harvest. This world is wrapping up really quick, and God's doing excited things. Let's be a part of it. We love you. We'll catch you in the next one.